today by Jonathan MacDonald. Jonathan, sir, how are you
Hello.
doing?
I'm
You're
great.
right.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Always an honour to chat to you, sir.
You too.
Listen, I've known you for a long time. You're an expert in business and the changing models of business. We now live in a world where everything's changing.
Yep.
Have you validated all your thoughts, or have you changed? That's a big question. That's a big question.
What a starting point. I think when I wrote my fifth book, Powered by Change, that fortunately became a bestseller and in different parts of the world, I was looking for, that was 2018, I was looking for the best possible metaphor for change to convince people that today is the slowest pace of change we'll ever experience. And then spin forward 24 months and we're in the middle of COVID. So I wasn't exactly wishing for something that significant as a metaphor. But to be honest, it was a good example of when change occurs, which is perpetual, just different rates of it, that we have a choice as how to respond, not just from a business perspective, but personal one as well. So because I bridge between the business strategy, transformational side, and then also a change mindset, it was a useful metaphor, despite the horrific nature of it, to remind people that things are always uncertain. We never quite know what next month is going to bring. And anyone who knows what it felt like between January and February and March that year will know exactly what I mean by that.
Absolutely.
And so, I think I've also changed in terms of my realization of how to convey stories to clients in a way that is more personal to them. I think I used to speak more in circumspect, maybe more abstract. I used to speak more ideologically. Now what I found myself doing since COVID, or during COVID and since COVID, has been far more specific to their particular industry or company, because they know, what change feels like.
And that's what I was going to. Is that a change in you, or do you think that's a change in, I suppose, the maturity of how we, as a society, as people, think because of everything that's gone on?
That's a good question. I think it's a combination of both. My approach has changed because I've realized what clients are more resonating with, and my entire ambition is to make sure that the clients get what they want. That's it's not it's not me trying to translate how I want things to be said. It's how they want to respond and receive. So I think in terms of the business perspectives, since in the last 2 years, at the time of recording now in the middle of 23, I think that businesses are, they used to say, well, kind of, I guess you're talking about this kind of constant transformation type thing. If at some stage things change in our business, how should we respond? And now it's like, right, everything kind of collapsed around us, and now we're trying to rebuild. What should we do? And so it's a different context,
And therefore, kind of taking that on, I think, are you seeing a new resilience in people, or do you think we are still reeling from the last 3 years, whatever?
I think both. Again, I swear, honestly, not every answer will be both. I think there's the reeling part is for real, but there is a resilience that comes from that reeling, and I think it's a survival of the fittest now, and people who are able to rebuild and restructure and grow from that are the winners. But that doesn't mean that people who have found it really hard are necessarily out of the race, because it's never actually too late to reimagine how to speed up our innovation processes. You don't miss the boat. The boat's constantly moving. It's just a question of when you kind of join up with it.
So let me ask you a question which doesn't allow you to say both.
Okay.
Are you optimistic?
I'm a realist. So I've kind of don't toy very much with optimism or pessimism.
Okay.
I feel that there are always going to be optimistic outcomes for people who try harder. There's almost always pessimistic outcomes for people who won't put in the work. And when I first met you, Nick, we sat in Black and Blue in Marylebone, which was a steak restaurant then. It's now something different. It's a yogurt dessert place, I think. And you told me about your vision for Speaker's Corner. and all the other offshoots. And this was like almost maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago. But
Don't.
so you are an example of someone who puts in the work and surrounds themselves with brilliant people. The outcomes are always good for that. You know, if you surround yourself with excellent people who know about things that you don't know, and you're always learning, then it's unlikely that you won't progress. So in terms of that context, I'm extremely optimistic. If you do the opposite, of course, and don't surround yourself with brilliant people and don't want to change anything, then there's no other outcome than bleak that I can spot.
So can I ask you, because again, as we're standing here, I'll tell you one of my distinct memories of you that kind of I quote quite often. I remember one of the first times I ever saw you speak, you talked about the 3 reasons businesses fail.
Yeah.
Which kind of, and I'll save that for you to explore. But I think my question to you is, like, you hear a lot during bad times about how the biggest companies or the best companies have come out of recession and come out of this. Mm-hmm. Are you a subscriber to that, or do you just believe if you've got an idea and you've got the right kind of focus and you surround yourself with good people, don't worry about whether the time is right or wrong or anything like that?
Yeah, well, for sure. If you look at it from a macroeconomic perspective, cyclical change spits out new winners by design of how it oscillates. So for sure, there's going to be companies that come out of this that didn't exist beforehand. You know, no one really knew what ChatGPT was going into COVID, right? So there are things that change. But in terms of whether or not whether it's ever too late to be or what the timing is, whether the timing is right. On a hype cycle, like let's take AI at the moment, things are really rising in terms of the hype. Now that could mean that it's the right time to really wade into that space. Could mean that the bubble hasn't even expanded enough to burst yet. So actually, I think timing is actually subjective. Some people want to be a fast follower. I mean, Google wasn't the first search engine. Santander wasn't the first bank. Alibaba wasn't the first online retailer. So I think if you looked at their successes, they're more a mindset stroke. I mean, there's a people, process, purpose, performance that they've made. But what they didn't think was, is this the right time? They were trying to solve problems that existed, whether it's indexing the web or making purchases online easier. It didn't really matter that much what the timing was in terms of a competitor landscape.
So I don't like asking time specific questions, but I'm going to ask for you, what's next? What's your eyes on at the moment?
I think what we've done as a human race is we've given birth to a new species, a web with a brain. So that's something. It's more than being able to construct an email automatically from a prompt. It's more than what we can do with creative technologies with Midjourney. It's actually a new species after the human race. So there's something in that in terms of what that means in employment and processing and operations, logistics. I'm looking carefully at that new species. I'm also realizing that the way that we work has fundamentally changed. The fact that me and you are sitting opposite each other digitally, and I genuinely don't know which territory you're in and vice versa. The way of working has fundamentally changed, and that's a COVID thing. So I'm interested in what that means in terms of cross-pollination of cultural ideas through borders. You know, societies are empowered throughout history of understanding how other cultures operate. We would do well to learn from others. So maybe digital communication is useful for that in a working environment. Because our offices don't need to just be, our head office is in Berlin, our head office is in San Francisco, and never the twain shall meet. We'll do one global conference in Texas. Yeah. Whereas now, if your office is in Berlin and one's in San Francisco, provided you get the time zones right, you're actually all in the same office now. And that's a fundamental change. And I'm excited about that. In terms of a way of working, that's a fundamental shift that holds lots of opportunity for internal innovation for a company.
And is that something kind of, are we finding our way through that? Or do you think kind of we're in it?
We're in it, but we're still finding our way through it. I mean, I hate to be cliche ridden here, but there's something about, it's not necessarily a destination, but the journey. But platitudes aside, I think we don't know what the future always starts now. So we don't ever actually have something that we're going to arrive at and work out. We're always working it out, and us too, even as sensible middle-aged businessmen, would know that we're kind of still learning what the hell's going on. And we can I remember my 10th startup, 3 exits, 4 failures, and I'm still kind of like, okay. Oh, that all right.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that, and I'm learning almost every hour. There's something which is like, I could be doing that slightly differently. And provided you have the humility to not think that you know enough, then you're okay.
I think, Jonathan, apart from the fact I'd like to talk for hours, because I always do when I'm talking to you, that's such a good place for us to stop. Thank you so much indeed for your time today. Been lovely chatting.
Love being here. Thanks, Nick.